Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt. With me today are Louis D'Souza and Anne-Marie Young. This is your Daily Dose of Happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. And hey, it's Monday once again. It's funny how that happens. Every 7 days, it comes right back again. So many people freak out about Mondays. I suppose that we could join the crowd if we really wanted to. I don't think any of us really want to be perfectly honest. Freaking out over Mondays doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. And I mention that because I won't go into a lot of details. It's not a story that's complete yet, so I'm not ready to tell the story. But I've been riding so much of a roller coaster going into today and through today that the last thing I want to do is start getting fretting about Mondays. So we're going to just start this off as if this were a really great Monday. What do you say? What do you think?
I get to see you guys every Monday. It's always to look forward to.
Absolutely. Good things happening. So what they usually call it Manic Mondays, but I think we need to change that around. We're going to call it Marvelous Mondays. Yeah. There we go. Same word, same time. I love it. Okay. So, hey, how you guys doing? Anne-Marie, I can tell you're already doing really, really well.
Yeah, I am good. I've been very busy and loving every second. Yeah. Lots of good stuff.
A good, busy life. Those are always fun.
Mm. Yeah.
And Louis is his usual, just level self. He never changes. He's just always level happy.
How boring. My name is 7 of 9. You will be assimilated.
You will be assimilated.
Resistance.
Where's Captain Picard when you need him? Yeah.
I reckon whoever wrote that knew something about Abraham Hicks.
I think so.
Because I always think a source is assimilating us every time we die, isn't it?
Well, okay.
And resistance is futile. When you're dead, it's pretty futile, isn't it? You will be assimilated.
I suppose, yeah. I mean, if you have a source energy continuum that is not full of any blocks or resistances, then not only is resistance futile, it's non-existent.
Exactly.
It just isn't even there. You got to have contrast for it to happen. Without the contrast, forget it. It's not going to happen. So
I've just been watching a few episodes of Voyager again because I don't know, something about the Borg really.
You like the Borg. You're a fan of the Borg. Well, there's also the other side of the Borg, too, because it's basically the idea that we will all think the same way. We will all think the same thing. We will all be on the same track at the same time, performing and pulling in the same direction for the same goal. And that's the Borg.
Well, take for instance, Abraham Hicks's explanation of what Source's ultimate goal is.
Well, you're going to leave us hanging there, or are you actually going to tell us?
I knew you knew, but I thought you were going to come up with it.
Well, I'm just waiting for the other half of the sentence,
So Abraham Hicks states that Source's ultimate goal is simply expansion.
Okay.
So if you think of the Borg, they are a collective, the collective of all the physical, contrasting, vibrational interpreting machines that have played with contrast, expanded source energy, and then re-assimilated into non-physical.
I notice how you slipped that word in there. Very nicely done.
Yeah. So, I'm just thinking about it in a way that I can kind of understand source energy, because it's one of the things that is always, if you even ask Abraham Hicks, they don't spend much time talking about who or what they are at all. So
even if you get a direct question to them, they just deflect it and
they deflect it beautifully.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
it doesn't affect you where you are now, and it's just like nope. So it's interesting that the non-physical part of us has designed this time-space reality very, very carefully to remove memory of all your past lives, memory of what non-physical's like, so that you can focus on your individuality of who you are here and now, so that you can play with the contrast that you've been given this lifetime and have agreed to, we presume.
Hopefully, although if we're Borg, it may not have been, a choice. So you will go.
It's when you break out of the collective and take on your individuality with a new body and as a baby, then you come out of the collective and then you play with contrast, and then you get reassimilated into the Borg. So I've really been enjoying the Voyager series, as you can see recently.
Well, no wonder nobody wants to die. They don't want to go back to being part of the collective. They want the individuality. I mean, that's a pretty straightforward
This
thing.
is the thing that even if you ask Abram, they're not very good at talking about the individuality of the non-physical 200 entities that talk through Esther, etc.
Is that the latest count, 200?
That was one along the way, somewhere along the line. I saw 200. So the picture that I remember was Esther was saying, "I really want to know what you guys look like," and then about 200 lights manifested in her room, and these are the non-physical individual energies that are not really individual, but we talk with one voice and one mind through you. So it's complicated, and I don't know if we'll ever get to the bottom of source energy. And if you think that source created everything in all the galaxies and all the universes and all the worlds that we have in the physical, it must be so big and powerful that I don't think our little minds are even going to begin to be able to comprehend even a small portion of it. But,
to kind of put it into perspective, I mean, you have this collection of 200 entities, strands of source energy, to use, I believe the phrase that Abraham uses, out of an infinite number. That's a pretty tiny percentage going on there. And yet we find what they're talking about to be pretty overwhelming. So, okay. Fair assumption that it's probably a little bit more than we can handle when you look at the entire spectrum of source energy. Yeah, I'll buy into that. But we try anyway because, hey, we're individuals. And we have egos. And we have desires. And we have, we want to be these. We're not just playing. We're here for the real thing. We're here for the total experience. So that becomes a good topic for today, which we all agreed upon before we got on to the show today. The ego, which actually does take kind of a beating from a lot of different quarters when you think about it.
It really does.
Doesn't it? Yeah. I mean, well, first of all, from ourselves, because we're really rough on ourselves. Second of all, from anybody who's trying to help us. You got to get that ego out of the way. Like there's something wrong with it. Something evil. You got that. It's always the ego that screws everything up. That's the attitude, right? And it couldn't be more mistaken.
It's also there to protect us, isn't it?
Yeah, that's one reason. Yeah.
I think it's important to dissect the originality of the word ego.
We're going to bring Freud in?
Absolutely.
All right, go for it.
Because Freud didn't say that there was only negative ego. He said there was positive ego as well.
Yeah, but society didn't listen to that part.
No, I know, but it's interesting. It's interesting. Like, I try to explain to people in the sauna, do you know why our newspapers and news feeds on TV, etc., are all negative 99% of the time? What do you think the answer is, Anne-Marie?
Fear.
Fear of what? Who's fearful
People
of what?
feed off the fear.
Why are they buying fear?
It's a leading question, but it's a good one.
Yeah. I would say they like the stress hormone, the adrenaline.
Yeah, that's getting there.
So we like the drama, as Abram would put it.
Yeah.
So the reason why newspapers and all news is negative most of the time is simply because it's supply and demand.
So people
So it's not necessarily the newspapers that are bad. They're just saying what's going to sell more, so I'm going to make more money. Oh, negativity sells more than positivity, so I'm going to put out a negative newspaper.
Or to put it another way, they're the mirrors of our society.
Absolutely. They're mirroring the masses.
Yep.
And the masses pay for their paycheck every day so they can live. And they're going to find anything that's more sensational because we like the drama. So
Well, some of us anyway. Some of us have gotten kind of bored with it, but
I don't know. I mean, how many of us are really excited to have stability and peace?
I didn't say I
know
wanted
too
stability
many.
and peace. Well, peace is good, but that's not the sole end. That's not my sole goal. But there are a whole range of good feeling emotions. I'm aiming for the whole range. I don't really try to zero in on one of them. I mean, sure, joy is usually at the top of the scale, and I like joy as much as the next man. But I also like optimism. I happen to be a friend of enthusiasm. I like all of the ones that you can put at the positive end of the range. Why should I limit myself?
So all those positive emotions, would you say they positive ego desires?
Yeah, I would say so. Sure.
So whatever we think, we create a vortex of what we want, and we create a vortex of what we don't want. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'm not sure
would
that
you
they're
say
really they're like two ends of the same vortex, aren't they?
they are? It's basically one human thinking.
Yeah.
That's the commonality. The difference is one is focusing wanted and one's focusing with unwanted.
Or lack. Yeah.
Yeah, all that. It's always interesting to me that wanted is one, and all the negative terms there's millions.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Yeah,
That blew me
I
away
mean,
for the longest time. Like, where did the rest of the
health.
English language go?
Yeah,
Yeah. Right.
I mean, yeah.
Like the bard didn't have the time to create the rest of the words. I don't know what that was all about.
Yeah, I like portraying that in the sense that if you want it to be well and happy, those are two words. But if you want to talk about disease, sickness, ailments, you've got millions of diseases that you can list, millions of ailments, millions of psychological dramas you can put down. But if you can't find the contrasting words to all of those, you only got success, happiness, peace.
Well, not if they're going to
health.
be if they're going to be unique. You're right. That's going to be impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got a.
I mean, you could put health on the opposite of all those.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we've got ego, which Freud said was two parts. So in a sense, you could say that the ego is wanted and unwanted, but we've even screwed that up because we're now saying wanted in an egotistical way, which kind of is a very screwy vibration. You know, like you want to show off, and that's bad, and showing off's not necessarily bad, but we've got it all mixed up there with this whole word.
Well,
ego.
I think that actually preceded Freud, if we're going to be really honest about it, because what we're talking about is morality, and morality has been around for generations. It's been around for centuries, millennia, and that's really what you're talking about there. When you put morality into the equation, then all the old definitions just kind of get twisted and distorted into whatever the morality says is important.
So morality is a minefield simply because it's all relative,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
and the
Isn't it
biggest
interesting how human beings like to try to figure out if there's an objective morality? It's a contradiction in terms, really.
it is, yeah. I mean, that's absolutely true, yeah. And it is some. There's a lot of philosophy groups that go around trying to discuss morality, and
Well, they don't really so much discuss it as try to impose it.
well, that's where the problem comes in. That is where the
Oh, I thought it came in
entire
before that,
issue
but
comes in.
okay.
The issue is when you want to take your belief structure and enforce it on somebody else. That is when everything starts falling apart. That's when wars are created
Yeah.
on every different level of shape
Yep.
of war.
This is true.
And it's really interesting because the COVID is and the vaccine have been a very big war between a lot of people.
What do you mean
and
happened? It
all of-
continues. It hasn't stopped.
Yeah, I mean, just well, as far as we're concerned, it's history. I gave up on that a long time ago.
Yeah, right.
You believe what you want to believe. But so you've got these contrasting views, and then you want to enforce it on somebody else. So you've just got this place where you're starting to learn more acceptance, aren't you? You're starting to say, well, if you want to learn you want to have your point of view, have it, and I'm going to allow you the space to believe it, and I'm not going to contradict you or push you or force you to believe mine. And that kind of tolerance, I believe, is what is necessary on this planet between religions, philosophies, cultures, countries, and all of that. So just a greater. This is another reason why I loved watching Voyager. They come across all these many different cultures, and they try and follow the prime directive, which is not get involved in all their crap,
Which always fails, by
let
the
them
way.
believe.
They never succeed in following the prime directive. I can't remember a single episode where they actually followed the prime directive.
They did try desperately hard not to impose their viewpoint. So it's a great study in the struggle that humanity has in trying to let people be who they need to be and want to be, and all the rest of it. It's very difficult to follow a prime directive in Voyager's case when they come to you and say, help me.
Which I think it's a great description about why the prime directive is flawed. Because right there you just nailed it. But what the prime directive basically says is we must never interfere in another culture. Essentially. The problem with that is quantum physics teaches us that the moment we're observing it, we're interfering.
I think their prime directive is...
It's not possible to obey it. The only way to obey it is to not go out into outer space.
I don't know. I mean, you might get some Voyager or Star Trek buffs coming on, but I think the prime directive...
Well, that's all right. They're welcome. You know me. I
think the prime directive is based around not interfering in lesser advanced cultures.
Well, I think it also
and
applies
not
to
in their wars, even if they are on the same level or higher than you.
It also applies to advanced cultures that are further advanced. I mean, they want to keep their officially they want to keep their hands off of all cultures that are let them develop on their own, whatever way they're developing. But once again, they fall apart on that. They don't actually follow their own directive.
Well, I mean, as soon as you want to trade, you start getting involved with them, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's... And then, of course, somebody steals something from you because they've got...
Right.
You've done some trading, and they've gone and conned you, and so you have to get involved. Don't really have a choice. You're now involved. So it's really tricky for man to learn to walk that balance of allowing other people to have their belief structures and keeping your own very clear through it all, which a lot of people seem to struggle with. A lot of people seem to get easily swayed by other people's belief structures along the way.
Are they?
I'll tell you something that happened in the sauna. It's not quite on point, but it's close-ish. So this lady, we're having this great chat, and I found she's an Abrahamster and all the rest of it, attractive black female. And she was telling me, not directly but indirectly, but then afterwards she told me it was true. But she was telling me that she had a relationship with a white guy, and he abused her. And then she became racist. And understandable. And then she had a relationship with a black guy, and he beat her up. And then she had a relationship with another guy, and he beat her up too. And then she started listening to Abraham Hicks, realizing that she had to change herself and not those outside.
The pattern becomes obvious after a while.
Yes, it does. She stopped becoming a racist. that vanished as well. It was really interesting conversation of how she evolved through this whole process. And going from experience to experience, and she was an intellectual, and she really got a lot of the stuff that I was saying and all the rest of it. But as soon as I started to teach her things that she didn't really know or thought she did know but wasn't clear about, she was not too happy about it. So she still had that whole pride and ego aspect to her, which was very, very strong, which did not want to allow her to accept new viewpoints or greater clarification, which I found quite interesting, and I just let go. It was just curious about how it all worked out. But she was quite determined that she was going to meet me again in the sauna and things like that. And I usually don't bump into the same people twice unless they're in a group that I'm part of, a member of. Then I bump into them quite often. But that's usually even planned because it's a huge sauna now.
What you're describing, though, is it's kind of a mixed bag in that I didn't hear in the story how she actually asked you for help to, deal with the other stuff. You just kind of injected it. And so it raises the question, is that an example of continuing to be respectful of the other person's independence?
You're right. Now, the way I justify it is I'm just sharing what I enjoy, and you can accept it or reject it. And I give people the freedom to reject it. So therefore, you could look at it as injecting it on other people. But because I'm just enjoying myself and having fun, and I'm feeling good about it all the time, I don't feel it's injection from my point of view, but they may feel like it's injection from their point of view and take umbrage, which of course is their prerogative, is their right. They're allowed to do that. And
it's also the challenge of points of view, because everybody has a different point of view, and no matter where you sit with your point of view, you're going to see something different from the way everybody else sees, and it doesn't matter what it is. It's
not that she was rejecting it, is that she agreed completely with it, but because she hadn't perceived it with the clarity that I had, she was a little bit, and being an intellectual, she was a bit, maybe, I don't know what it was, but she didn't like it that much. I can't really describe exactly how she was feeling because I'm not her. But, hi, Luke. So, it's just one of those things. I mean, I had some great conversations in the sauna recently. It's just stunning. But,
you and your sauna, I mean, you have some of the most interesting experiences that come out of that sauna. I'm kind of curious. You've told us a whole lot about the sauna, about the club, about the expansion that they did and so forth, the literal physical expansion. Just a very interesting place, but it's almost like you've made it your second office. I mean, you just do so much of
I actually don't go there that often, but...
well, you tell a lot of stories about it, I'll say that.
But every time I go, Walt, I'm putting out the thought form, let me speak to people that are compatible or interested in what I want to say. And I get them ad nauseum, from beginning to end. I'm happy. I can still do my sauna. I can still do my swimming. I can still do my plunge pool, because one lady I was telling you about the plunge pool, I had an out-of-body experience in a plunge pool. And she was fascinated by this, and she wanted to understand all about the out-of-body experience. So she jumped into the plunge pool with me, and we chatted about out-of-body experiences. But... then we talked about non-physical, and we landed up with the law of attraction. And she was really, really interested. I mean, people, as I say, really, they shake my hand, they ask for my name, they remember when I'm in the sauna, and I don't remember them. And it's terrible. I've got this face and name block that I really remember somebody else's face and name. But if you were talking about a philosophy or concept or gave me a story, I'd never forget it. Never. And because I know stories on each one of yous, I'll never forget you guys either. But for me, I really struggle to take any great importance in the physical look of a person, and even their name is not that important to me. And it's just me, but I will see into you and I'll know stuff inside, and that'll be incredibly important to me, but the rest I just kind of like shave off. It just vanishes. That's why it's difficult for me to see race, creed, age, anything. I get along with young people, middle people, old people. It really doesn't make any difference to me. It doesn't matter what race, sex, or the orientation. It really doesn't bother me in the slightest. Because I look inside and I see where they really are and where they're going to. And I enjoy that, and I play with it, and I have fun with it. I love, in the sauna, for example, I'm lying there, my eyes closed, and I'm chatting to people. I don't even look at them. But I can feel that intellectual contact and movement, and it's like an energy that goes between us. And
the energy between people in near proximity is palpable.
Yeah.
And then there's absolutely no need to sit up and look at them.
Maybe you're just there to plant the seed, to plant that little seed for them to take it away and let that grow.
Again, my enjoyment is just sharing it, and if they do spark up and spark, then it's great, and if they don't, it's great. But I'm there to enjoy myself and have fun, and that's it.
So let's
You know,
bring the topic in that we're talking about, ego. Where does ego fit into what you've just been laying out here about this beautiful experience that you have when you go to visit the sauna at your local club?
yeah, I mean, from my point of view, it's really, if you're doing things that you really, really enjoy, Walt, and Marie, if you're doing something that you really, really enjoy, then you're not really doing it with ego. The ego's kind of got out the way to a huge degree, if not largely, and all you're doing there is being yourself. You're having fun. You're allowing people to accept or reject whatever you say or do, or whatever area you play with, and there is very little ego involved. If somebody rejects me, argues with me, or whatever, I enjoy it. I prefer it.
That much I know from years of experience.
It's not something that bothers me at all. So if you can go in with that sense of wanting to know or experience who the other person really is, outside all the psychological drama, outside all the physiological drama, eyeshadow, high heels, big boobs, small boobs, whatever, big things, small things. If you can get past all that, you can really have a lot of relaxed, simplistic beauty about just being who you are and sharing who you are.
So let me raise a question
Ego.
to tie into this, because what you said a couple things that were kind of interesting there, very interesting actually. The way you described it, it sounds like your definition of ego does not include the idea that the ego has fun, that the ego enjoys life in any way.
Again, I'm using the society's usual definition or experience or use of the word ego, which is you're being an egotistical bastard, kind of.
Oh, okay. Because I'm hoping that we can actually come up with a more accurate description, because I think that's a really extreme description of the ego, and it's the reason why the ego gets such a bad name, because we put it into this corner like, oh, all the bad stuff's over there. You guys stay over there. We'll be over here. It's that kind of an attitude. Whereas I actually think we should be celebrating the ego. I think the ego is actually a very good thing. But again, it's going to come down to how you define what the ego is. So that's what I was asking.
Exactly. And Abraham Hicks says there is.
How do you think about it, though? You particularly. How do you think about the ego? Do you think about it in terms of being able to experience joy as well as experience sorrow and anger and desire to control, and you will be absorbed into the continuum and all this other stuff?
Yeah. Personally, I've removed the word ego from my entire database use.
Okay.
I have no use, time, energy for the word. Freud can keep it. People can play with it.
Well, he did copyright it after all. So.
He did? That's interesting.
Well, the copyright ran out a few years ago, but yeah, it was all copyrighted.
Oh, right. Okay. I don't see the use for the word. It doesn't seem to help me become anything or not become anything. And I think society is confused about the word. It's not a clear word that they really know how to use.
For good reason. Nobody has a clear definition of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So therefore, erase the word, find another word that's got a better clarity to it and is more useful, and continue with your life. That's my 2 cents worth.
All right, so I'm going to go to Anne Marie on this one. I mean, you actually had to cut out for a little bit there, but I think you heard most of what we were talking about.
Yeah.
Where are you on this concept of this topic of the ego? Because I'm trying to make the argument that I think there's a good side of the ego, and that we should stop treating it as this horrible shadow thing to throw away. But where do you sit on that?
I mean, I think for me, the ego is something that is there to protect you. It's something that's there to keep you safe. But I think it can stop you from growing if you listen to your ego. And so that can hold you back. So I think there's pros and cons to it. Yeah, I think it's got a positive side, but I also think, it can delay you in your growth if you choose to let it.
Anne-Marie,
Mm-hmm.
you said listen to your ego. What part
That's
of
to
you
myself.
is listen to your ego, listen to yourself? What are you trying to say?
Well, to me, the ego is like this little voice in my head that doesn't.
Oh,
I
you're the
don't
one with the
necessarily.
devil on your left shoulder
I
and the
am.
angel
I
on the
am.
right.
It's not there so much anymore, but that's
And
it's.
Louis is one of those ones who says that the one on your left shoulder is a devil. I like that. Yes, okay. Now it's very clear where he's coming from.
I only listened to that one, Walt. Better the devil you know than the devil you don't know.
Oh boy, there's an old cliche. Yeah.
But yeah, it's just that voice. I tend to listen to it or don't listen to it, and it's also when my ego to me is when I want to show off a little, or why do I have to be that center of attention? Is that my ego, or is that me being authentic, or what am I covering? You know.
There's another
So I think.
distinction that you just made a distinction there that a lot of people make, particularly these days in the last 10, 15 years, that's become a big distinction. The distinction between expressing ego and being authentic, with the implication that if you're expressing ego, you're not being authentic.
Mm.
And
Walt,
that just doesn't make sense to me. It really doesn't.
You're trying to do what your sister-in-law tried to do, is take a word and redefine it and tell society they've got to take it on board. No, I mean I'm just throwing that last piece in because I know you're not trying to. And
Louis knows a good tripwire when he sees one. He tries to stay away from or step over it. Yeah.
and that is never really going to happen. The word ego has an active vibration in our society, and you ain't going to eradicate it anytime soon. And to try, I believe, is a folly. Create a new word which defines clearer what you mean, and you'll have a much greater chance of moving forward than trying to redefine or get the world to start looking at a word which has been in our culture forever in a different way.
Well, perhaps. I mean, I'm not terribly interested in whether or not the world changes its mind or not. It's up to the world, to the people in the world.
Which is why I brought that part in.
I bring up the idea of the ego being unfairly treated the way it is as a pointer that every time that we do that, the only people that we're actually setting up is ourselves. Every single time that we insist on delineating between, well, there's my spiritual side and there's my ego side. There's my authentic side and there's my ego side. We're basically saying, okay, there's a part of me that I'm either going to disown or I'm going to ignore or I'm going to pretend that it isn't there or something along that line. We're not going to embrace it. There's never embracing going on in that conversation. There's never
Walt, I love my ego. It's just so cool, man. I just rave, man. I'm the man.
Well, that's good. I like that. That's good.
Yeah, I thought you'd like that because that's what you're getting at, and I get what you're getting at. Okay, I'm cool with that, man. I'm really cool with that.
I mean, I might not quite have gone that far over the top, but that's all right. You know, it's good.
You know, contrast is a teacher, man.
I'm still trying to find the lesson book, but yeah.
You're laughing. It worked.
It worked. Right? Yes, I have my daily dose of happy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the ego is something that I'm trying to learn to celebrate it more and more. I don't care if anybody else does, but I think it's a good idea for me to do it anyway, just because I want to accept all of me.
So how are you doing that, Walt? How are you celebrating your ego?
You went through Taya boot camp. You're a Taya graduate. I'm going through it now. To draw from the Taya world, it's the idea of acceptance of transgressors and acceptance of things we would normally consider negative, and more than acceptance, appreciation. That's really where the Taya world goes. So they're trying to take it to, let's appreciate this wonderful thing that in the past I said, oh my God, I can't stand that thing, which is a big challenge, but it's also very, very potent. We've all three of us talked about that numerous occasions here. It is an extremely potent, powerful thing to find a way to love and appreciate those things that we would normally reject. And when we develop that, we become, talk about masters, we become mastery masters. We're like, nth degree masters at that point, because now nothing can stop us.
I was thinking of something that really annoyed me hugely recently, because it's very rare. Because it stuck out. Like
I can hardly wait. This is going to be a story.
Was it in sauna?
It was in the sauna, yes.
Somebody removed all this clothes in the sauna. No, that didn't annoy me at all. Being nudist, that was nothing. So I took my daughter to a friend's birthday party. She'd been invited, and she gets there and she plays a little bit and wanders around. She comes back to me, Dad, I'm bored. Now she's in a play area where she can play with all her friends and all the rest of it, and she tells me she's bored. And I was like, what? I said, what do you want me to do about it? She said, I'm just bored. I said, just try play a little bit more. So she goes out and she comes back, I'm bored. So I said, do you want to go home? She says, yes. I said, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to go to your friend's mom and say to her, you're bored? Oh, no, Dad, please don't do that. Please don't do that. Tell her something else. Like, you want me to lie to her? So I'm sitting there with this annoyance on my face. And I was trying to think, why did it annoy me so much? Did it annoy me because I felt I had to lie? Did it annoy me because it was a social interaction and a possibly future dynamic with my daughter and her peers and her friends? What was it that was really getting to me? And I still haven't completely got to the bottom of it. I think it's a collection of all of those. But I was fuming on the way back in the car. I was absolutely fuming.
Wow.
More with myself, trying to understand where this
I almost want to see that just to
huge
see
anger
it.
came from.
I can't even. I have never seen you even come close to that. So I'm curious. Like, what does Louis look like when he's actually in that space? Oh my God!
You
Next
don't
time we
want
got
to
to do
know.
a live.
You don't want to know. Ask my daughter Isabel.
Yeah, right.
What am I like when I'm angry?
Oh, annoying.
Really annoying. I lash out on people. So yeah, I mean, it's a standard thing when people are angry. That's what happens. But I'm always highly aware, even when I'm doing it, that I'm doing it. I'm also aware that I could tailor it. I'm also aware what depth I can do it and not do it. I also sometimes use it for effect. Even when I'm not angry, I can act angry.
I'm curious because I know that when I'm angry and I'm aware of it, I get really pissed at myself, like really annoyed with myself. Like I know that what I'm doing right now
that is how I felt in the
myself
car.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I felt in the car.
Like,
I was highly aware of it, but I was like, what's triggering this? And, I don't know if you know, but on the 23rd, was a couple of days after full moon. It was a very spiritual day. I think it's the solstice or the equinox or one of the two. A couple of days ago, and all the rest of it. So, and it was on just around that day. It was on that day or the next day, and a lot of things get triggered for me around that period. I mean, my inner sound gets incredibly loud. I know the moon's full and I can feel it, and there's a whole lot of things that go on with me. So, and sometimes I get triggered a lot quicker and easier during that period. So, you must also think that there's external factors that are affecting you as well. And you've got to factor all these things in to try and get a vague idea of who you are and where you're coming from, where you're going. But that's me. I mean, I live in a different world to everybody else, but that's just me. So, it was really interesting for me to sit there and puzzle this one out, because I was really frustrated with my daughter and myself, mostly myself. But I was like...
I'm sure your daughter actually had nothing to do with it. She was just...
Probably not. Absolutely. Yeah. It was just like a trigger that landed up and all the rest. And most of the time that is what happens when you get angry. It's an accumulation of other things. It's not that incident that triggered it.
Right.
Do you think kids trigger us because it's something from our childhood and we don't remember?
No, I don't Freud that kind of stuff. Just... So if you have repressed problems from your childhood, I look at it as a cup of dirty water, and you know what I do with that.
Yeah, you top it up.
I top it up and top it up and top it up and top it up. I don't go there. I don't go and dig out those empty pieces, take my tweezers and find that black little spot in the water. I can't grab it. I can't. Oh, that's too small. I can't get it. No, I just leave it alone. Fill it up with clean water. Off I go.
I was just thinking about the stories that you told us about your own path that you've taken through life, the various things that you've discovered along the way, the things you've experimented with, the theory that you developed about how we are what we eat, we are what we drink, we are what we breathe, all that kind of stuff. And it occurs to me that there are a couple ways that you could look at that. I think I know from what you just said which way you looked at it. It's possible to look at that as a person who is basically going through and imposing all these things on themselves and trying it out and experimenting and throwing it away and so forth, or which is not the way I expect that you do it. The way you do it is more, and you tell me if I'm wrong about this, is more along the lines of you're adding this and you're adding that, and then it's like a pile of stuff that keeps growing and growing and growing and growing.
Because
So,
when you focused on what you want, you feel good.
mhm,
It's really that simple, and doing that often creates a belief or an active vibration vortex on that
mhm,
subject,
mhm, yeah,
and that with low resistance you get the manifestation. It's really quite simple. It's the Abraham Hicks philosophy. It's something I took to heart completely after I understood it, and it was the point I was making in the sauna to this girl, which she wasn't too comfortable with, is that a lot of people enjoy Abraham Hicks because they watch it and they feel good when they're watching it, but they don't take on board the philosophy and the concepts that they have, put them in their life and live it. It's, oh, let me just feel good, I'm going to put the headphones on and listen to them again, you know. And there's a huge portion of the Abraham Hicksters, which even in my own family and friends and all around me, when I question them about what is the teaching of the Abraham Hicks philosophy, they can't answer it. They cannot answer it clearly. They might have bits and pieces of the puzzle, but it's not clear at all. And I just see this so often, that, you know, when you get a philosophy, you really want to own it. And I know, Walt, you've really understood it. And it's, you know, over the years you've got bits and pieces and you put it all together and you've really got it. And I love that because, you know, you integrate it in your life and you're now living it. And it's, you know, to me, it's, I get very few people I meet like that. There's just very, very few. I can see Anne-Marie is really writing down, trying to understand it, learn it, and do all that. So I love that because she's on the path of really getting it and taking on board and working with it. But there's a lot of people who just getting the quick fix, like we are doing as humans, you know. Order on Amazon, share the next day. Yeah, it's all cool, you know. But if you go out there and you don't only get the book, you read it, you get the philosophy, you take the philosophy, you integrate in your life, which means you have to make them an active vibration. That philosophy has to be thought of again and again in different circumstances and different situations. Take the Abraham Hicks philosophy, for example, or any philosophy, and then as you put it in practice again and again, and you're just thinking about it, you don't even have to put it in practice. If you think about the philosophy again and again, and it appeals to you more and more, and it makes more and more sense, you activate that vibration. That is when you start living it.
if the majority of people do follow the path you're describing, where they don't actually go out of their way to learn that in depth and really make it a part of themselves, is that a problem?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
It is a problem for me, not for them.
Oh, okay.
In other words, to me, to find a good philosophy, a new philosophy that you're in tune with and clear about, which I have been discovering more recently, to not integrate it into who I am and to start using it practically, think about it often enough, create different scenarios, apply them in your life, speak to other people about them, and then have them such an active vibration that you start living them, then it's just a bit of a waste. Why bother even starting to look at it? Just smoke, drink, do whatever you want to. Go do it. And you can learn from that way, but it's a really hard knock way. I'm speaking to all these people in my gaming community, and all of them take drugs. Well, a huge portion of them take drugs. Actually, my close friends who I play with often don't. That's interesting. My core group, none of them take drugs, but almost everybody else is taking drugs. I haven't thought about that. And they look at me with complete confusion. How do you not know what this is or what that is, or how do you not know where to buy it or how to get it? Or I said, I've never touched a drug in my life. Worst is an aspirin or some headache tablet. That's about it. And I have taken, of course, antibiotics as a kid ad nauseum because of my sickness, but that was doctor prescription. I didn't know any difference when I was young.
Right.
So it's really interesting that when I talk to them and I say, well, why do you take it? And I say, oh, no, you chill out, or, it helps you have these experiences and all the rest of it. And I say, well, I can tell you about all my experiences. I can tell you how I relax, how I get the chill feeling. I can show you energy techniques where you can do it. I can tell you breathing techniques where you do it. I can tell you how you can create it with your thinking. I can go on and on and on like this. I've had so many experiences without any of this stuff, which is okay. And if you want to play with the stuff, I've got no problem. You just got to understand really what drugs are. Most recreational drugs are step 3.
It's interesting that you're describing it this way. And the reason I say that is there was a special that my wife saw on Netflix or something. I'm not sure. She's got so many different subscriptions going. I have no idea which one this came from. But she saw this program, and it was a program that was looking at why it is that Homo sapien and Neanderthal branched off into 2 different directions. And one of the things that they were citing in this, and obviously this is their theory, I'm not going to claim knowledge one way or another, but according to them, there was this huge, well-documented expansion of the brain, the size of the brain, the brain cavity and all that kind of thing, in a relatively short period of time as eons go. And they, in this particular show, they were equating it with the discovery and use of psilocybin. They were saying that it is a possibility that...
What is psilocybin, just so we can...
LSD, mushrooms, magic mushrooms.
Oh, okay.
It's the active ingredient.
Yeah.
It's not LSD. LSD is a little bit different. But it's the same family, so to speak. And psilocybin is, according to this theory, is what the Homo sapiens got into the psilocybin and is what expanded their brain cavity. That's what their theory is.
So again,
they got into the psilocybin. They got into taking it and
which ones got into it?
The Homo sapiens.
Homo sapiens got into psilocybin and they expanded themselves.
And expanded themselves as a result of it.
Now,
so it raises an interesting question. Well, yeah, there are a lot. I can tell where you're going, and yes, go there in a moment. But my point is, there are a lot of cultures that actually believe that the use of these hallucinogenic substances actually does lead to expansion.
Yeah, doesn't mean there aren't other ways of doing it as well.
So of course, yes.
Yeah.
And it also raises the question: would Homo sapiens, if this theory is correct, and of course that's a big if, would Homo sapiens have become Homo sapiens without psilocybin? I don't know what the answer is to that either.
I think it's so far back in time. I don't think anybody can make a particularly accurate judgment on any of that, but that's just me.
Well, that doesn't stop anthropologists. They go after it anyway.
No, I'm sure it doesn't. I'm sure it doesn't. New philosophies start off as hypotheses, don't they?
Mm.
And there's nothing wrong with a new hypothesis. Nothing.
No,
It's
but
just
it's just fascinating, I think.
Ask Terence McKenna. Who's that?
That's a name I recognize. It's an author, I think.
McKenna.
Nicole, you're gonna have to tell us who Terrence is. He worked his whole life on this.
He worked his whole life on
that's
this,
why I
okay.
recognize the name. Yes, okay. Yeah, he was probably named in that special that Louise was watching.
The best book I've ever read on that kind of stuff is Don Quixote's. Gosh. Well, it'll
Blank
come
out.
to me. Sorry?
Blank out.
Yeah. I mean, it's a book I read quite a while. The Power Within. The Fungi. Yeah, we enjoyed that movie. But
Fantastic fun. That was great.
you'll know who I'm talking about. Somewhere in south of California. Guy was meeting up with a American Indian shaman or whatever they call those guys, and he was initiated into the whole thing as a Westerner. And he wrote some books that are very, very, very famous. And I'm sure if I give you the author's name, he will immediately know it all. But that was fascinating, and that's the best book that kind of describes the use of these drugs. These drugs were only there just to tip you over the edge, just to take you a little bit further than you could go at that moment in time. They weren't there for any other reason, not long-term use or anything else. They were literally there just to shift your perspective or your ability, as I now understand it, to tune your vibrational interpreting machine onto another station. And that's it. And what a great job that book does in twisting your mind into absolute pieces. After that, your mind is completely confused. and it does a brilliant job of that. If you ever want a book that takes your mind and warps it completely, it's a great book. That's just books. He wrote quite a few of them.
Nicole gave us a link on when that gentleman passed away, Terence McKenna. Apparently, there's an article in the New York Times from that date that describes him as the patron of psychedelic drugs. So, there you go.
As much as I appreciate that, Nicole, it's not something I'll be going into.
I can't imagine you taking that into the sauna. No, not really the first item on the reading list. Yeah.
But, you know, and with somebody who's really, really advanced, clued up, like some of these American Indian shamans, and they wanted to take me under my wing and said that this is a short period of time where we use this to expand this and this for this reason and explain it all very clearly, I'd be happy with it. You know, I would probably use it because in those circumstances, for spiritual reasons, for like a one-off, I don't really have any problem with that kind of idea of using a tool like this chi machine, which I'm using, which I'm really enjoying, which I talked about the other week.
Yeah.
It's really shakes up a lot of your old patterns in your whole body, and I strongly recommend it. I can't
remember who it is. Oh, I know who it is. One of the people in the Thai boot camp, when she heard the episode where you talked about the chi machine, she had one from years ago. And you talking about it encouraged her to get it out and start using it.
Get it out again.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Wonderful.
Cool. You know, they sold millions of those things in the beginning. And I'm sure there are a lot of people like her that they're just sitting in the garage, you know, not doing anything. But, you know, for me, I'm using it very much on a spiritual, energetic point of view. And, you know, there's so many benefits that I'm experiencing from this on so many levels, but I'm so keenly aware of my body that I can see all these different cascades that are going on, you know. I can see that if I continue using it, I'd never use a chiropractor or osteopath again in my life, although I don't think I've been able to do without one for about 10 years now.
What, the chi machine or the osteopath?
The osteopath.
Okay.
But I can see that somebody who does have any back problems in any shape or form, urinary problems, lymphatic problems, digestive problems, everything, you know, it's just a huge amount of things that this thing can help on. Losing weight, you know, it's really a key machine for so many things, and it gets parts of your body moving in a way that don't normally move. So yeah.
You just cued something in my mind. I got to bring it up because it's kind of cool. Well, first of all, yesterday was actually the 9th anniversary of LOA Today. It was 9 years ago.
Oh, wow.
On the
Nice.
26th.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Yep. Louise and I made the first episode. Well, actually, we lost the first 20 minutes, and then we made the first episode. But that's another story unto itself. And we did it on our 13th wedding anniversary. So yesterday was our 22nd wedding anniversary. And we celebrated it with a couple of friends, one named Anne-Marie, who used to be a co-host here on the show, and her husband, Mike. And we went out to dinner with them. One of the things that, of course, when you go out to dinner with friends and, you know, you're dressing up a little bit and having fun and so forth, is I pull out some slacks that I had worn in quite some time, put them on, and found that they were really too big. Apparently, I've been losing weight and not knowing it. And the cool part was I was just doing it purely with intention. I wasn't changing any of my behaviors or anything like that. And I think the last time I tried to put those on was about a little over a year ago. So in a year, I lost about an inch worth of waistband, which is pretty cool. So you really can do it with intention. I just wanted to make sure I brought that in there. It's fun.
You need to teach me that, Walt.
Well, thank you very much. So we got just a couple minutes left. Anything else that we need to bring in about ego? I know Louis is burned out on ego at this point. He didn't even want to go this far into it. But Anne-Marie, how about you? Anything more you want to bring in?
No, I think that's been really interesting just to have that different viewpoint. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you for the conversation. I think I'll just I'll throw out one more vote for appreciating the ego, because I really do think it actually helps all of us who choose to do so to achieve what we're trying to achieve. I mean, many of us in these conscious creator circles are attempting to grow ourselves, to get better at being manifestors, to have happier lives, to have the more abundant lives, and so forth. One of the best ways you can do that is to appreciate your ego, I believe. I actually think we work against ourselves when we demonize the ego. So my take on it
Appreciate
is,
your self-worth and confidence.
yeah, appreciate everything about yourself.
Yeah.
Even those areas that you previously described as shadow areas. They're part of yourself. You know?
Well, do you remember in Illusions? Because I know Anne-Marie's just finished it. You like it?
Yes.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Isn't that a
Yeah.
great book? It's a wonderful
Oh,
story.
shivers when I finish it. Just shivers all down my spine.
Yeah. Don't you love the end of the book? It says, if you want to know, what is it? If you want to know if anything in this book is everything
Everything in this book can be wrong. Yeah.
anything in this book can be wrong. Didn't you love
Right.
that at the end?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first time I read that, I was pissed at it.
Yeah.
The first time I read that, and I got to that, I was like, well, what are you trying to mess with my head? What's going on here? And for everybody who doesn't have any idea what we're talking about, we urge you to read the book Illusions by Richard Bach. It is a wonderful, it's an easy read. It is very educational. It's fun. It's a great story. And at the end of it, one of the protagonists dies and the other one is just blown away by it. And that's when he reads in the back of this magical book that he's got, everything in this book may be wrong. And it's like, what? What do you mean? I'm counting on you to do this.
So, Walt, just quickly, in Illusions, there's that point where Donald Shimoda gets angry at Richard Bach.
Mm-hmm.
And Richard Bach's saying, I really don't want to make him angry again. Like,
You're right.
oh, God.
I don't fancy myself being squeezed out of existence.
That's kind of how I feel when I get angry. It's I wouldn't want to mess with myself either.
Boy, am I glad I just do a podcast from thousands of miles away. It's much, much safer. Talk about the ego keeping you safe, Anne-Marie.
Exactly.
There's an
That's why I brought it up. That's a good ego point.
All right. I think we did a good job with the ego thing. So thank you guys for exploring the ego, even though Louis didn't really want to go there, but I appreciate it anyway. Thank you very much to podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.